Welcome back to Asset Coach Tax Strategist YouTube channel. This is part two of us discussing about the BRICS and currency. Really, that was the focus. Is part one was talking about the 10 world's weakest currencies, then the 10 most strongest currencies, and really on that list of the 10 strongest, the US dollar was 10. You had the Swiss franc in there, and then you had the pound. Okay. Other than that, none of these other countries within the BRICS, so to speak, were in that scenario now of strongest currencies. Now, what we are seeing is a lot of conversation about how this is going to create this de-dollarization, right? This is going to eliminate the dollar. And you've heard me say before, this is, in my opinion, I feel like this is more fear mongering. This is really more distraction of what's really going on politically in the United States. That's my personal opinion. And we're going to go through a couple articles now as part two of understanding currency and what does this BRICS mean and the de-dollarization, because I think this is very important from a currency perspective. And what people are concerned about is, oh my God, we're going to lose our money. I think what's more important is not necessarily the BRICS, but I think what's more important is the digitalization of currency around the world. What Bitcoin and the decentralization of currency has caused these various countries around the world to create their own digital currencies, even though the US kind of has digital currency with digital processing, but we still use the dollar as the backbone. But the reality is they're trying to eliminate cash anyways. We have since Nixon, and we got off the gold standard. It's all based on the backing of the United States government, which every other currency is going to be exactly the same way. Now, there's talking about the BRICS is going to be backed by gold and all this kind of stuff. But there's a point in time in every country in the economic development that you cannot have enough precious metals or whatever physical value to match the value of the currency exchange, which is why in the 70s with Nixon, we shifted from the gold standard. Because inflation, because the value of dollars, because things become so much more expensive or valued, which is kind of a catch-22, because you want your currency to be more valuable. But then if it's more valuable, it's more difficult to exchange. So you have to have more of a free flow in the market in the currency, an open exchange, which is one of the things that China's really worried about. If you remember in one of my other episodes, we were talking about that. Maybe my Farming Assets podcast, we talked about that China is kind of, why would they want to be the main currency? One of their issues is that they don't want to be the main currency because they don't want transparency. The U.S. government has been very transparent with the flow of dollars in and out, to our own detriment, but to the benefit of others. So before I keep going on, and you can completely disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I've never said I've been a currency expert. I've never said I've been an expert in economics or world economics or trade or anything like that. I'm just some average Joe that's reading these articles, looking at my gut feeling, looking at common sense, understanding how, unfortunately, the media and government tries to create these fears and distractions to kind of keep us under their thumb, so to speak. And so I'm just trying to look at this as a random dude looking at this saying, scratch my head. And as you can tell, I've scratched my head quite a bit. And does this pass the smell test? And that's all I'm trying to do. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to anything of what I say. And that's perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. You can subscribe. You can give me a thumbs up. You can give me a thumbs down. You give me a great comment. You give me a horrible comment. At the end of the day, it does not matter. Because that does not affect me. This is information that I think we need to be aware of to cause us to think, rather than all of us be drones and clones and just say, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir. Thank you, sir. I don't think that's what we're built on here in America and as human beings. So with that, let me go ahead and move to our first article. So This is based on modern diplomacy. Okay, this is the moderndiplomacy.eu. So this is a European publication. It was written on July 15th. And how does the BRICS currency transform the world economy? Question mark. It doesn't say it does. It said, how does the BRICS currency? So let's go through this really quickly, and then we'll go into the countries that are adding their names to the list of BRICS, so that you and I have an idea of who these countries are and where do they fit in this whole scheme of things. Okay, the creation of BRICS currency has become throughout the past year one of the headline themes related not only to BRICS, but also the global financial markets. Along with, now, notice this became more and more of a dialogue and a concern as the U.S. said, we're going to stop printing money. We're going to raise interest rates. We have inflation. Okay. And now this really hasn't stopped the U.S. from printing money. It just has stopped printing money for other countries like it has in the last 3 years. Along with the skepticism coming from most of the pundits from the developed world, there is also an enormous number of misconceptions and unsubstantiated claims of the speedy demise of the dollar and the crumbling of the global financial system due to the creation of the common BRICS currency, which is what I've been saying. In reality, the actual scenario of the modalities of the introduction of such a currency are yet to be determined, and it could well be that in the first stages of the launching of the BRICS currency, it could take the form of an accounting unit rather than a full-fledged international transaction currency, which is what they've talked about. They've talked about this being a way to just link exchange of currencies, and each of these countries still keep their existing currency. They don't shift or change into like the euro did, where they have all the countries using the euro as a currency. But even the guise of a unit of account for the economies of the global south, I'm not sure why they call them the global south. When you look at the map, they're all over the world. The R5, taking its name from the first letters of the BRICS respective currencies, could have a significant effect on the international financial system and deliver important benefits to the economies of the developing world, which it possibly could, because you have so many people that are unbanked, right? That's the reason why digital currency, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency has become so popular, is because you have so many people that are unbanked. They don't have access to the traditional banking system, which is what made crowdfunding and microloans so popular around the world. The first forays into the R5 common currency project and the use of BRICS as a platform for de-dollarization were undertaken by Y. Lizovilik, sorry for mispronouncing your name, back in the 2017-18 in a series of publications for the Vladai Club, again, apologize for the mispronunciation, as well as the South African Joburg Post and The Thinker. The Thinker is I've read some of the things on The Thinker. It's pretty good. It's thought-provoking. The subsequent discussions around R5, while mostly revolving around the creation of full-fledged euro-like currency for international transactions, also featured such alternative paths as the reserve currency or an accounting unit. Now, here's the thing about the euro-like currency. The euro, all those nations were what? Next to each other. They all shared borders and they were all connected. We're talking about countries that are literally across the world on different continents. They have different political agendas. They have different economic developments. And so I think from more of an accounting unit, I think that's more accurate. Okay, I think that's really more accurate. The latter would be, in fact, be the easiest and perhaps the most realistic scenario for the first stages of R5 project. And in my opinion, I agree with this, because if you can use this as an accounting, you get a feel for, is this theory going to be a reality? Right? And that's what you want. And if you can hand this as an accounting unit, then you can figure out some of the kinks and how to utilize this to be something that could be a potential currency. And quite honestly, by that time, it could be 5 to 10 years. By that time, you're going to have cryptocurrencies that are going to be more legitimate than they are now. There's a lot of amazing projects out there right now in cryptocurrency that actually will probably address this right now. But because you have leaders of countries, you have politicians of countries that may not understand cryptocurrency and blockchain, they're going through what they normally understand and talking traditional currency routes. Now, according to the leading experts in the field, the creation of an accounting unit for BRICS would be realistically undertaken with minimal resources and could be implemented in a relatively short period of time. Absolutely. Rather than rushing to create a physical unit to service international transactions, a staged approach would involve the creation of an accounting unit, allows for tracking the volatility and stabilization expectations around the operation of the future BRICS currency. The launching of a new BRICS currency in the form of a physical medium of exchange may well be greeted with speculative attacks and attempts to test the resiliency of the new currency to the full force of global capital markets, which is what we're seeing with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and how the governments are treating that. How is this going to be any different? Even though you have governments doing this, where cryptocurrency is a separation or a decentralization from governments, you're going to see the same response. Human is human, right? Accordingly, in the terms of sequences of the BRICS currency, it may make sense to prioritize the creation of an accounting unit first and to accompany this effort with the development of market infrastructure in the main financial centers of the global south that can support this project. Apart from the simplicity of this introduction, this mode of R5 is also in line with international best practices, in particular with such instruments as the euro and SDR. Furthermore, the accounting unit route has the advantage of being flexible, with one in several BRICS countries having the capability to launch such a currency format on their own without the need of participation from all BRICS members. The resulting balance of the pros and cons suggests that the creation of the R5 as an accounting unit would minimize the risk while retaining a lot of the benefits associated with the common currency, i.e. the easiest way to create the BRICS global currency via the introduction of an accounting unit is also the most optimal in the near term. This I agree with. I'm actually this is the first time I'm reading this article, by the way. So most of the time when I read articles on this channel, it's the first time I have. You can imagine how much time it would take to read all the articles. I look at the headline, I say this would be interesting. Let's throw this on YouTube or let's throw this on podcast and let's see what this would look like. So I actually agree with this particular writer substantially, and it makes sense, doesn't it? Common sense, right? The smell test, doesn't it? As for the R5 impact, perhaps the most important aspect in which the BRICS currency changes the world economy is the change in the mindset and the mentality of economic agents and businesses that is currently centered very much on the greenback. This mental dependency on the dollar arises from the fact that it is central in pricing, accounting, statistics across the board, the globe, because we've already tested it, right? We have transparency. We create market liquidation, which is part of the problem of why we're talking about the BRICS, is because the United States has used the dollar in this control as a weapon against other countries that aren't following in line. Right or wrong, those are the actions that are being taken. So you can see and understand why some other countries around the world dislike us. Duh, right? Even mom and dad, when they punish you, what's your first reaction? You're mad and angry at them rather than retrospecting at yourself. Because what are you going to do? You're going to be mad at yourself? Yeah, people do that, right? But at the end of the day, your first emotional reaction is against the other. The introduction of BRICS accounting unit that replaces the dollar in the major economies of the developing world would provide a different reference point for emerging markets and a different lens through which business tracks in the BRICS plus economies. Expectations of global agents would be increasingly geared towards the new BRICS currency, with greater attention, according to global markets, to the monetary policy decisions in BRICS countries, rather than being overly fixated on the minutes of the signals from the Fed, which I agree with this. I do have to agree with this. I can imagine as a separate country, the frustration of a single person, the Fed, who is appointed by a president, a political person who's been voted in by the people, quote unquote, voted in, right? And that is the individual who gets to decide on really what the world So it's not the United States president that's the most powerful. It's the Fed chairman from a financial economic perspective. Okay. Another reason why the issue of BRICS currency is seen as being so critical is the credibility and stature that it delivers to BRICS as a bloc with global reach. Thus far, the main achievements of BRICS have largely been associated with the creation of new development bank, something that falls short of sizable transformation in global governance and the international financial system. It is the creation of a new global currency by the BRICS bloc that would represent a veritable innovation and a transformation of the global economy with a quantitative, lots of big words there. I don't know what half of those words are, and I think I'm pronouncing them right. I'm not sure. Big words. So the quantitative terms of introduction of BRICS currency would impact the direction and quality of the macroeconomic policy pursued by BRICS members. My sense is that the emergence of R5 would somewhat reduce the tolerance of BRICS monetary authorities to sizable swings in the exchange rate of their respective national currencies, which I think is correct. There may also be a greater coordination with macro economy policies in BRICS and BRICS Plus economies to ensure a smoother trajectory towards implementing the subsequent stages of the introduction of R5. The overall quality of macroeconomic policies is also likely to improve to ensure secure macroeconomic foundation for the operation of the common future. Basically, what he's saying is the people who are unbanked, right? The people who do not have access to the current banking system, the macro aspect of the local economies, this would be very beneficial. This also it will help ward off inflationary pressures compared to the Fed and other central banks from developed countries. And then there is the course of reaction from global financial markets to the introduction of the BRICS currency. The very introduction of R5 as an accounting unit would feed expectations of greater future demand for BRICS currency as the R5 project advances to the stage of reserve currency and or physical unit exchange. The creation of R5 could also fuel the use of national currencies, including those of BRICS, in an international trade at that same time, which would be really good, because if you have your local currency, each national currency as part of this flow exchange, that creates a diversification, right? So right now you have the US dollar, and then you have the euro number 2, and then you have the pound, right? And then the yuan, okay? And so these are ran by countries. So this is really actually good, because I think this creates that diversification if we use it as an accounting feature. And if it was used as an accounting, then it allows each currency to be able to build the strength of the currency based on the national currency. Okay, I think that's very important. I think that is a hand up, not a handout. And so what we want to make sure is that this currency doesn't create another handout like the dollar, and then in 15 years, we're having this conversation all over again. Okay, now we could keep on reading, but I don't think it's very important to keep reading. Well, let me see here. There could be a risk associated with introduction of common BRICS currency, such as the scenario of excessive zeal. Yeah, let's keep reading. Excessive zeal in the introducing of advanced modifications of the R5 in the form of a physical unit or exchange. There is somewhat disconcerting predilection on the part of many market participants to advocate the creation of such a BRICS currency. So there could also be risk associated with the introduction of a common BRICS currency, such as the scenario of the excess zeal, which makes sense, right? People overly excited. The importance of not creating a currency right off the bat with this term excessive zeal, I think could cause issues quicker and would cause bigger reactions or response reactions, rather than being proactive, being reactive responses, which could cause additional issues moving forward, as we know with certain currencies. But the end purpose of BRICS common currency is greater than wealth creation for the households of businesses of the global South, rather than servicing the interests of market speculators. In this regard, it may be preferable to make things transparent and simple during the early stages of the R5 project for the sake of its credibility. And this is the big issue with China. This is the big issue with China, is transparency. That's it. So China wants the BRICS to happen because they can use something else to be transparent versus then them being transparent. And then you have Russia included in this. Okay, so two communist countries that have a history of not being transparent, right? Overall, there may be important dividends for the BRICS, even the minimalistic approach of opting for, at first, for the path of an accounting unit. The impact of creation of such a currency for global economy, business operations, and international economic policy debate could also be significant in the near term. Going forward, it is crucial that the creation of the new BRICS currency is not centered solely on the creation of an alternative to the dollar. This is interesting. Okay, let's see what they're going to say. So let's see here. Let's start again. Going forward, it is crucial that the creation of the new BRICS currency is not centered solely on the creation of an alternative to the dollar. Rather, at an early stage, the key priorities of the R5 project need to be focused on building greater trust in the financial systems and currency instruments in the global south, to facilitating greater South-South trade and investment, as well as the development of deeper capital markets. The BRICS currency will also need to serve as a credible anchor to those developing economies that will be increasingly reorienting their trade and investment flows to the global south. Again, I don't know what this global south is, but think about it this way. This BRICS could help the creditworthiness of the local currency, to allow the local currency to make business economic decisions that may be a little more financially at risk for that economy because they don't have the economy to do that. But because of the credit backing of BRICS, they can make that step. And that's essentially what the dollar has done for some of the other countries as well. So let's transition and move over to also from modern diplomacy. More than 30 countries want to join the BRICS. And I think it's important. This is part 2. So I think it's important to understand who are these BRIC countries. Now look at here. Look at this map. So you have pretty much all of Asia. So here's Russia and China. And so you have all of basically close to, you have India, right? You have some Asian countries down here. You have some Middle East countries, nobody in the Euro because of the Euro, nobody in North America. You have a Central America country, so you have Argentina and Brazil, the two largest landmass countries in South America, and then you have some African countries. Okay. I don't think this is a good formula. I don't think this is a good formula as a currency. Again, as an accounting or a crediting type backing, I think it would be beneficial. But let's look at all these countries. So the BRICS alliance are Afghanistan, Algeria, Argentina, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Belarus, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Sudan, Syria, the United Arab Emirates, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkey, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe. The majority of these countries within the last 5 years to the last 10 years have had political issues that have been significant in the news. A lot of these are very untrustworthy. Do you really want Afghanistan and Iran and Syria and Pakistan in something like this? Do you want to be in the same quote unquote boat as these folks? How about Venezuela? Of course they need something. Of course, Zimbabwe, their inflation is out of this world. So I don't necessarily see the development will come as a blow to the United States of America and other Western nations, which see their GDP dwindle to that of the BRICS. I disagree. I don't see that happening at all. I don't see that happening at all. In fact, one of our future episodes is going to be talking about India and how India's GDP in the BRICS countries is the only one that's a positive GDP. Now, there's some outlandish conversation that they have said is that hey, they're not going to have any future inflation or downturn or anything like that. They have no risk, which I think is ridiculous. I had to read those articles because at the end of the day, it's supporting what we're talking about here. And so if India does what Great Britain did, what England did in getting out of the euro, what does that do for the rest of BRICS? So these are all things that need to be brought to light, because you and I are sitting here, all we're seeing is these articles that are creating this fear in our mind, this uncertainty. So anyways, hopefully this was helpful. I don't know. If you think so, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, add some comments. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit subscribe. We're trying to come out with this kind of stuff, news, credit-worthy information, stuff that's current news, that's going to affect us or not affect us, right? That's the whole point of my channel is this something that's necessary? I don't know. Let's look at this from a different perspective. Somebody who really, me, I have no benefit to you subscribing. Give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down, a good comment, a bad comment. I don't care. I'm not doing this to monetize. I'm doing this to have fun. I think this is interesting for you and I to know this stuff. Somebody has to try to be a voice of common sense and reason, even though I'm not an expert, but what does that mean nowadays, right? So I need to raise questions, because through those questions, you and I can get closer to a truth, at least to an understanding of how we can feel about what's happening in the world. So thanks so much for joining us. Once again, my name is Bob Wolf. I'm an asset coach and tax strategist, and you're at Asset Coach and Tax Strategist YouTube channel. Have a great day.